Most people who feel behind aren't actually behind. They're being graded on a curriculum they were never given, with a rubric nobody explained, in a race where the finish line keeps moving. And if you've tried to fix that feeling with more productivity, more hustle, more self-criticism, you've probably noticed something frustrating, even on your good weeks. The pressure doesn't fully leave, it just changes outfits. Later, you'll hear the exact hidden rulebook that keeps creating that squeeze, and the one shift that makes the whole system finally feel fair. Because behind is rarely a fact. It's a relationship between your life and a quiet set of expectations you didn't consciously choose. When the brain can't predict what enough looks like, it starts scanning for evidence that you're falling short. That scanning becomes urgency. It becomes shame. It becomes the constant feeling that you need to catch up before you're exposed. The myth is that everyone else got the memo, and you didn't. The myth is that there's one normal timeline, and you're late. The truth is uglier and kinder at the same time. There are multiple timelines, multiple curricula, and a lot of people are quietly improvising. You're not failing life. You're missing a syllabus. School is structured. Assignments are obvious. Tests are scheduled. Grading criteria is explicit. Even if you don't like it, you can orient. You can aim. Adult life often does the opposite. It hands you outcomes without instructions. Be successful. Be stable. Be impressive. Be confident. Be happy. Those words sound clear until you try to measure them. Then they turn into fog. And fog is where the mind starts making up monsters. One of the biggest reasons you feel behind is simple and surprisingly human. Your brain is trying to keep you safe from social risk. A lot of status anxiety is really belonging anxiety, wearing a cleaner shirt. Humans are wired to track rank and inclusion because for most of history, being pushed out of the group was dangerous. Today, the group becomes your peers, your workplace, your family, your community, your feed. The threat isn't a tiger. The threat is judgment, exclusion, being quietly labeled as the one who didn't make it. So your mind monitors. Am I where I should be? Am I doing enough? Am I running out of time? That's not laziness. That's a nervous system trying to reduce uncertainty. And uncertainty is exactly what the invisible curriculum produces. The invisible curriculum is everything you were never explicitly taught, but are still expected to perform. How to choose a path without guarantees. How to build a network without feeling fake. How to negotiate. How to recover from rejection without turning it into your identity. How to create structure when nobody is enforcing it. How to make peace with trade-offs. How to stay regulated while your life is genuinely incomplete. Some people learned pieces of this at home. Some learned it through mentors. Some learned it because life forced them to adapt early. Some never got access. When you compare your inside to someone else's outside, you're not just comparing effort, you're comparing invisible training. A 27-year-old female marketing associate sits in her car before work, phone in hand, 2 minutes before she has to walk in. Instead, she scrolls, engagement photos, a promotion post, someone moving into a bright apartment with big windows, another person launching a side business. Her chest tightens, not dramatic enough to call a panic attack, just a low-grade squeeze that says, "You're late." She thinks, "I should be happy for them." Then she thinks, "What is wrong with me?" Then her brain starts listing everything she hasn't done: savings, relationship, degree, confidence, clarity, health, discipline. The list never ends because there's no syllabus, no final exam, just the feeling that she's about to fail one. That squeeze isn't a character flaw, it's a prediction problem. Your mind wants a simple map. Do these steps, reach this milestone, and you're safe. When the world doesn't offer a stable map, the brain borrows one from whatever is most available. And right now, the most available map is everyone else's highlight reel. That map doesn't just show progress. It creates the sensation of being behind. Not necessarily because people are trying to hurt you, more often because social environments amplify what's exceptional, polished, easy to consume. Your nervous system doesn't know that. It only knows, I'm seeing evidence of other people moving, and it interprets that as I'm falling behind. The body reacts before logic can catch up. Here's a counterintuitive truth. The feeling of being behind can get louder when you improve. Because when you start growing, you start seeing farther. Standards rise. Your awareness sharpens. You can imagine better options. And now your current life feels smaller by comparison. Growth can temporarily increase dissatisfaction because your brain is updating what's possible. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're waking up. But waking up without a plan is miserable. So let's name the hidden mechanisms that create the behind sensation and then turn them into a visible curriculum. First, ambiguous goals. When the goal is vague, like get my life together, the brain never receives completion signals. You can work all day and still feel unfinished. Completion is a nervous system experience, not just a checklist. If your goals don't have boundaries, your mind keeps them open, like browser tabs you never close. Those tabs drain you. Second, social time distortion. You don't see the full timeline of other people's lives. You see bursts, announcements, peaks. Your brain compresses those peaks into the illusion of constant progress, like watching only the goals of a match and concluding everyone is scoring every minute. Third, identity debt. This one is quiet and powerful. Identity debt is the gap between who you think you should be by now and who you currently are. The larger the gap, the more your day-to-day choices feel emotionally expensive. Even simple tasks come with a hidden tax. This proves I'm behind. This proves I'm not the kind of person who succeeds. When tasks are loaded with identity meaning, you avoid them, not because you don't care, but because the emotional stakes feel too high. Fourth, unprocessed trade-offs. Every path has a cost. If you don't consciously choose the cost, you experience it as loss. You see someone traveling and think, I'm missing out. You see someone building a business and think, I'm wasting time. You see someone in a relationship and think, I'm failing. But you're comparing the benefit of their choice to the cost of yours without acknowledging the cost they're paying too. Fifth, survival mode baseline. When your nervous system is already running hot, poor sleep, chronic stress, constant stimulation, the brain becomes threat biased. It scans for what's wrong. In that state, behind becomes the default interpretation of your life, even if you're objectively progressing. Here's a quick self-test. Just notice your immediate answers. When you think, I'm behind, what flashes first? A specific milestone you haven't hit, or a general sense of being less than? Does it spike after you see someone else's update? Or does it show up in quiet moments when you're alone with your thoughts? And if someone guaranteed you'll be okay in 5 years, would you still rush? Or would your pace soften? Those answers tell you whether you're dealing with a practical gap, a comparison trigger, or a nervous system problem. Most people have all three, but one is usually driving. Now for the shift that changes everything, the one promised earlier. Stop measuring your life by milestones and start measuring it by skills. Milestones are outcomes. Skills are controllable. Milestones depend on timing, gatekeepers, geography, context, luck. Skills are portable. Skills compound. Skills make the next milestone more likely, without forcing you to pretend you control everything. When you switch to skills, you stop feeling behind and start feeling in training. Behind is a verdict. In training is a process. So what skills belong in this invisible curriculum? You don't need all of them. You need the ones that close your specific gap. For most people, it's these 5. Clarity, not cosmic purpose. Clarity as in, what are you optimizing for this season? Money, mastery, health, relationships, stability, adventure, creativity. You can't optimize for all of them at once. Trying creates permanent behindness. Structure, the ability to create a weekly rhythm without external enforcement. Nobody is taking attendance anymore. Structure isn't rigidity. It's a container that reduces decision fatigue. Emotional regulation, not never feeling anxious. Regulation means you can feel urgency without obeying it. You can feel shame without turning it into a life philosophy. You can return to baseline faster after stress. Social positioning, not manipulation. It's knowing how to build supportive relationships, ask for help, communicate needs, and put yourself in environments where opportunities naturally happen. Many people were never taught this, and then blame themselves for not getting lucky. Feedback, the ability to get real signals about what's working without collapsing into self-attack. People who grow fast aren't always more talented. They're often better at reading feedback as information, not identity. Now turn this into something usable, starting today. Minimum viable version, 2 to 5 minutes. Write one sentence, just one. This season, I am optimizing for day, and I will accept being average at. That second blank matters. It tells your nervous system that trade-offs are allowed. It closes mental tabs. If you're optimizing for financial stability, you might accept being average at social spontaneity for a while. If you're optimizing for health, you might accept being average at overachieving. If you're optimizing for mastery, you might accept being average at fast results. Say it out loud once, even quietly. The body needs to hear it. Then choose one skill rep for the next 24 hours, not a milestone, a rep. If you chose structure, your rep could be a 10-minute reset where you clear your workspace. If you chose clarity, your rep could be naming 3 real constraints you're operating under and stopping the fantasy that you don't have any. If you chose regulation, your rep could be 3 slow exhales before opening any app. If you chose feedback, your rep could be sending one message asking for a specific critique. 2 minutes, 1 sentence, 1 rep. That's your minimum viable curriculum, standard version, the plan that changes your month. It's a weekly loop, not a daily grind. Once a week, do a curriculum review, short, practical, not inspirational, like checking a dashboard. Answer 3 questions. What did I practice this week that makes future me stronger? What did I avoid? And what emotion was I trying not to feel? What is the next smallest skill that would reduce my behind feeling by 10%? 10% matters. Most people set goals that require a 200% personality transplant. Your nervous system hears that and rebels. 10% is believable. Believable becomes doable. Then plan your week around 2 anchors, not 12 habits. Anchor 1, a focus block that builds your chosen skill. 2 45-minute blocks, or 3 30-minute blocks. The number matters less than the rhythm. You're proving training is happening. Anchor 2, a recovery block that protects your baseline. Recovery isn't optional if you want the behind feeling to quiet down. A stressed nervous system interprets everything as not enough. Recovery changes the lens. Recovery can be embarrassingly simple. A walk without headphones, a shower without scrolling, stretching while water boils, sitting outside and letting your eyes go soft. The point is to give the brain safety cues. We are not being hunted. Then add 1 deliberate exposure to the thing that triggers comparison, but in a controlled way. Instead of accidentally doom scrolling, choose a window, 10 minutes. Scroll with an intention. I'm studying patterns, not judging my worth. If something spikes you, label it. This is my brain tracking status. Labeling loosens the grip. A reflex becomes data. That's the standard plan. Weekly review, 1 skill focus anchor, 1 recovery anchor, and controlled exposure. Upgrade version for ambitious people who keep outgrowing their own systems. This is where you build a personal syllabus. Pick 1 life domain for the next 8 to 12 weeks. Just 1. Career, health, relationships, creative work, financial habits. Choose the one that triggers the loudest behind alarm. Now define 3 levels of competence in that domain. Level 1, stabilization. You stop leaking energy. You install basics. You reduce chaos. Level 2, skill building. You practice the behaviors that produce results, not outcomes. Level 3, leverage. You design your environment so the behavior becomes easier. Systems, templates, social support, mentorship, strategic constraints. Most people try to jump to leverage without stabilization. That's why they feel behind. They're trying to build a second floor on a shaky foundation. If the domain is career, stabilization might be cleaning up your resume, organizing your portfolio, setting a weekly outreach rhythm. Skill building might be interview practice, one technical upgrade, clearer communication, asking for feedback on your work. Leverage might be finding a mentor, joining a community, building relationships so opportunities come through reputation, not desperation. If the domain is health, stabilization might be consistent sleep and baseline movement. Skill building might be learning meals you'll actually eat, training technique, stress regulation. Leverage might be designing your environment so your default day supports your body. If the domain is relationships, stabilization might be boundaries and reducing emotional reactivity. Skill building might be repair, communication, asking for what you need without accusation. Leverage might be spending time in communities where your values are normal, not rare. This turns adulthood into training instead of performance. Now, the comparison problem needs a direct reset. Comparison isn't always harmful. It can be informative. The question is, does it lead to action or collapse? Healthy comparison says, that's possible. What skills did they build? What conditions helped them? What part of that do I actually want? Unhealthy comparison says, they're proof I'm failing, and turns someone else's life into a verdict on yours. A simple rule. If you can't name the cost they paid, you don't have enough information to compare. Every visible win hides invisible costs. Stress, debt, loneliness, family support, health sacrifices, lucky timing, prior training, social connections. Sometimes the cost is worth it. Sometimes it isn't, but you rarely see it. So replace "they're ahead" with a more accurate sentence. They're specialized. Ahead in one domain, at one time, under one set of conditions. You might be specialized in others, or in a different season. This doesn't deny reality. It restores accuracy. Another gut check. And it's important. If your phone disappeared for 30 days, would you still feel behind with the same intensity? For many people, the answer is no. Not because problems vanish, but because the constant external timeline stops hijacking your internal pace. Your nervous system stops getting pinged by other people's milestones, like alarms. You don't need to quit social media forever. You just need to stop letting it be your measuring tool. Your measuring tool should be your curriculum. And here's what almost nobody says out loud. Some of the behind feeling is grief. Grief for the life you thought you'd have by now. Grief for time. Grief for the version of you that would have been easier if certain things hadn't happened. When you don't acknowledge that grief, it leaks out as urgency. You try to outrun it with achievement. You keep moving because stopping would force you to feel. A regulated nervous system can feel grief without turning it into doom. So offer yourself a quiet permission slip. Yes, I'm disappointed, and I'm still allowed to build from here. That sentence is more mature than most motivation. Now stitch it into a map you can carry into your week. Choose your season. What are you optimizing for right now? If you don't choose, fear and comparison will choose for you. Choose your primary skill. Clarity, structure, regulation, social positioning, feedback. Run reps, minimum viable today. Weekly loop for the month. 8 to 12 week syllabus when you're ready, and track progress the right way. Don't track how you feel day to day. Feelings fluctuate with sleep, stress, hormones, what you just saw online. Track what you practiced. A simple metric. How many reps did I do this week? Reps can be tiny. A rep is a deliberate action aligned with your curriculum. When you track reps, you get completion signals. Completion signals create safety. Safety lowers the behind feeling. That's the loop. Because the core problem was never that you weren't trying hard enough. The core problem was trying hard, without a syllabus. One more truth, and it's relieving when you let it land. Sometimes you feel behind because you're trying to build a life in an environment that doesn't fit you, not because you're defective, but because the demands and resources don't match. If your job drains your baseline stress every day, it's harder to build anything on top of it. If your social circle normalizes constant comparison, you'll feel behind even while progressing. If your family system treats rest like failure, you'll interpret recovery as laziness and burnout. Part of the curriculum is environment design. Reduce unnecessary friction, increase support, create safety cues. A tiny example. If you wake up and immediately check your phone, you invite the world's timeline into your nervous system before you set yours. Swap that for 2 minutes of stillness, water, and 1 sentence of intention, and you choose your curriculum before you're graded. Small changes, big downstream effects. If anxiety is overwhelming, consider professional support. You might still be behind in some areas, and that can be true, but being behind is not a moral failure. It's information. It's a signal that your current inputs haven't matched your desired outputs yet. And the more clearly you see it as a skills problem, the less it becomes an identity problem. You are not late as a person. You are learning a curriculum that was never handed to you, and you can learn it deliberately. Start today with 1 sentence and 1 rep. Run the weekly loop. Build the 8 to 12 week syllabus when you're ready. Leave a comment with 2 words, my season, and what you're optimizing for right now. It helps you commit, and it helps other people realize they're not alone. And if you want more psychology-based scripts like this, subscribe and keep building a life that matches your real pace, not someone else's timeline. The old advice was built for a world where you picked one lane, stayed in it, and slowly became the person who does that. But the future doesn't reward single-lane certainty the way it used to. It rewards people who can move across domains without losing credibility. People who can learn fast, translate between groups, and build things that don't fit inside one job title.